You had to dislike his sister-in-law a lot since he wrote The Queen of the Night for her. Not in the most important place, but everywhere else, Beverly Sills was the biggest opera star in America in 1970. The Metropolitan Opera kept hiring singers from Europe while ignoring her. There were rumors of private talks and politics going on behind the scenes. After that, Sills did something bad on national TV. She told everyone about them. What came next was very bad. Letters with threats were sent to her house. While she was acting abroad, her son tried to kill himself. The delay hurt her job, but it also almost destroyed her family. 20 years would pass before the real reason came out. A woman named Belle Miriam Silverman was born in Brooklyn in 1929. Her folks came to America from Ukraine and Romania to get away from bad times and find better things. At home, they didn't talk English very well. Little Belle learned to speak English, Russian, Romanian, Yiddish, and French as she grew up. She was known as Bubbles by everyone in the neighborhood. She would always have that name. Something amazing took place when she was only 3 years old. On the radio show Uncle Bob's Rainbow House, she sang a short tune. So good were her high notes that engineers had to add a red light that flashed when she reached a peak. Back then, $10 an episode was a lot of money. People liked her so much that they sent her bubblegum wrappers with their names on them. In 1935, her mom had saved more than 700 guys. She was called Bubble Girl Silverman by other people. Then, around Christmas, Beverly Sills' name showed up on a radio poster. It didn't sound as Jewish and more like show business, but it was still her. In 1936, when she was only 7 years old, she sang The Mockingbird faster and higher than anyone else had ever heard. She got $50 in gold coins and a small part in a short movie. The crew had to redo the whole dinner scene because she sang a note that was so high that it broke a prop wine glass. For $75 a week, she was hired to tour with Major Bose's vaudeville company. 3 times what most adults made during the Great Depression. Little Bubbles went all over America from 1937 to 1940. She sang in 27 states, did 142 one-night stands, and only got a few hours of sleep each night. Every morning was a train stop, every day was a class, and every night was a stage. If she missed a note, she had to pay a $25,000 fine. She lied about her age to get around rules against child labor. For school, she mailed her work from trains with the message urgent. In 3 years, she sang even when the power went out and there was coal dust around. But after all the costs, her family only got $400. She kept singing for years. But it took a while for her big opera break. No one could agree on when her real debut took place for a long time. Some said it was 1947. But in the end, they learned the real date. It was February 14, 1951, in Philadelphia. That night, she sang for only $15. That small paycheck was barely enough to cover her train fare. The mistake about her first book was printed in encyclopedias, histories, and even her own book. She finally got a big part with the New York City Opera in 1955. Even though she was beautiful on stage, she only made $50 behind the scenes, while the older singers made hundreds. To pay her rent, she had to type up resumes for other singers. She went on another rough trip through 63 cities from 1951 to 1952. Her show was almost every night, she lost 18 pounds, and she got bronchitis. The orchestra had to play from time to time from the stage, and she had to sing from the halls so that everyone could hear her. She didn't stop, though. She had a chance to try out for the Metropolitan Opera in 1958, which had been her dream her whole life. She turned it down, though, because she wanted to stay with City Opera. Some people really liked her in The Ballad of Baby Doe, which came out that same year. She became famous. The Met's director made fun of her opera group by calling it the Bronx of Opera. People all over the country loved her anyway. The wedding took place in 1956. An author from a rich family in Boston. However, neither side of the family agreed. His family didn't like that she was Jewish. The fact that he wasn't upset her family. She even got a torn prayer blanket in the mail from one of her aunts. His mom didn't go to the wedding. The next year, they were almost no longer together. After they had their first child, though, everything changed. Meredith was her daughter. She was born in 1959. But by the end of 1960, doctors knew she was deaf. Some people wanted to send Sills to a mental hospital, but she refused. For 8 months, she quit her job and taught Meredith by herself every day. In her journal, she said it almost broke her. Meredith couldn't sing without crying, but her mother worked hard to teach her how to read lips and talk. Sills has always fought for kids with disabilities after that loss. Then there was another blow. Peter Jr., her son, was born in 1961. He had seizures and was behind in his growth. Later, they found out that he also had autism and epilepsy. They told us he would never talk again. She kept working. During the day, she sang long operas, and at night, she stayed up with him while he had seizures. In 1967, she finally had to put him in a special care center after a scary accident. She said it was the most difficult choice she had ever made. She gave the stage her all even though she felt like she was giving away a piece of her heart. She begged to play Cleopatra in Giulio Cesare in 1966. She sang 64 high E-flats on the first night, and she even did a cartwheel that made the chorus laugh out loud. A 17-minute standing applause followed her. In February 1967, she was on the cover of Time magazine. 77. She had offers from all over the world all of a sudden, after years of being ignored. It's possible that she pushed herself too hard. When she played Manon in 1968, she added fun touches that made people love her even more. But that part made her voice hurt. She had to keep going with cortisone shots. Doctors later found that her voice cords had been hurt early on. Her best years didn't last long. It was hard to handle the stress. In 1963, when she had her second child, she went through another hard time. She got pregnant again, but then she got toxemia, which is very dangerous. They told her she might lose her voice or even die. At that time, most abortions were against the law, so she had to get permission from a hospital board. She went by her real name, Belle Silverman, and didn't say anything about it for 20 years. In 1987, she finally wrote about it. She said it was one of many tough decisions working moms had to make. Beverly Sills was on stage at La Scala in Milan in April 1969. The crowd booed her as soon as she walked on stage. That theater was known for being mean to strangers, but she didn't blink. She was American and trying to sing Italian opera. The whole scene changed when she began to sing. Her voice was so strong that it filled the hall. Fans who were really into her got her 18 curtain calls and a gold band by the end of the night. A lot of people called her the Phoenix of Brooklyn. Her pay went up by more than double overnight, and she started getting lots of job offers from places like Covent Garden and Vienna. The person who told her she wasn't good enough for his theater now sent a message saying she had taken over Milan. But just over a year later, things were almost over. She felt like her voice wasn't right while she was practicing in Dallas in October 1970. In her throat, it hurt like sandpaper. 2 lumps were found on her voice cords by doctors. She thought it was over. She wrote letters to say goodbye the night before surgery because she was scared she would never be able to sing again. It only took 28 minutes for the process to finish. But after that, there was silence for months. She couldn't say anything, not even a word. For 6 weeks. After that, she didn't perform for a whole year. She missed more than $350,000 worth of shows because of that silence. But she learned sign language during that time so she could talk to her deaf daughter. She also studied her parts in silence, mouthing each word until she could speak clearly again. In 1974, when she came back, she did something no one thought she would do. In just 14 weeks, she chose to sing all 3 of Donizetti's Tudor Queens. These parts were hard for her voice and could have hurt it. Doctors told her she might hurt her cords again, but she was determined. She lost 12 pounds and didn't talk at all on the days she had to run. People who didn't like her were amazed at how quickly she could change from sad to angry queens. It wasn't meant for the 3 plays to go together. People will always see them as a set, though, after she did it. There were no more tickets left. And the season made more money than any other in her company's history. But things were going badly for Beverly at home. Meredith, her daughter born in 1970, was not hearing at all. When he was born in 1972, her son Peter Jr. had terrible autism. Peter Greeno, her husband, was shocked. He left for 3 months in 1971. And living by themselves in Boston. In November of that year, they began going to marriage therapy. She thought about giving up singing to spend all of her time with her kids. She added up how much she could make on stage and how much her kids needed to live. They told her to use her pain in her shows. People saw something new in her playing in January 1972. It was sadder and deeper. In late that same year, Peter quit his job and went back to New York, where he became known as Mr. Mom to a Queen Bee. Beverly said that going through hard times made her a better actor. Time magazine called her America's Queen of Opera on the cover of their March 1972 issue. There should have been a party. Instead, a lot of mean mail came into her office. In more than 300 letters, people said she was fake and that the real divas were in Europe. There were even red-ink tabloids in one letter that said "blood on your high seas." Some letters were traced back to a coach who wasn't hired and was angry. No one was caught. The threats were real, though, and so was the attention. Ticket calls went up by almost half, and her record sales went through the roof. On The Tonight Show, she made a joke about how she was now the most talked about punching bag in opera. The joke turned her fear into fame. Beverly finally took the stage at the Metropolitan Opera in April 1975, when she was 45 years old. She sang the same Rossini opera that caused a stir in Milan. The 18-minute standing applause at the end of the show was the longest for a debut since World War II. People who reviewed her said that her high notes were great, but some said that her voice was getting weaker in the middle. The crowd didn't know that Beverly had laryngitis and had only been able to perform because she was very determined. It did work, though. She got a $10,000 bonus that was written into her contract as a joke because the cheers went so long. Then came the night when millions of people saw her on TV. There was a color TV show of her singing Lucia di Lammermoor in December 1976. To beat out a famous song by Joan Sutherland, she added a few extra high notes. There were more than 9 million viewers. Some reviewers thought it was great. Some people said they could hear the strain. Doctors gave her cortisone the next morning to help her swollen cords feel better so she could film more scenes for a PBS show. She became more well-known on TV, but it also made her singing weak. In May 1977, she put out a crossover record with Mozart, show tunes, and even a disco version of a well-known opera aria. In just a few weeks, it sold over 100,000 copies. It was the fastest time ever for an American singer. But then there was a scandal. A singer from Canada said that Beverly stole her unique vocal flourishes from a 1962 show. The record company quietly paid $25,000 to end the case and change the titles. It was a small blow to Beverly's picture of classical music as warm and good, but it showed how competitive and intense the genre had become. Her mother passed away on July 23, 1977, from cancer. Her mother taught her and held her down. Beverly was very sad. Still, she didn't take away any shows. After 66 days, she was back on stage singing La Traviata. She wore a bracelet with hair from her mother in it. In one scene, she cried so hard that everyone in the room could hear it. Some reviewers said it was her most moving show ever. People came to see her turn her sadness into art, as well as to hear the music. The box office went through the roof. By 1978, it was easy to see how much it cost. A big story in the New York Times asked if Beverly was still in great shape. Her range shrunk. She had trouble controlling her breath. She didn't slow down, though. By 1972, everyone thought that Beverly Sills would finally sing at the Metropolitan Opera after Sir Rudolph Bing quit. But 3 whole seasons went by and there was still no invite. The stated reason was that of time conflicts. Some people inside the Met said different things. They said that some employees who were loyal to Bing didn't want Sills to work there. They thought she was too flashy, too TV famous, and too Brooklyn. New York newspapers couldn't get enough of the exciting story. They made posters of Italian stars that the Met hired while Sills signed pictures outside of City Opera. She didn't slow down even though no one paid attention to her. She sang 57 times in 18 places. People called her America's diva, even though the United States didn't have an opera house for her. It turned into a joke, but not for Sills. Then February 26, 1973, came along. Even though the opera got public money, Sills criticized the Met on national TV for giving more attention to European stars than to Americans. That one line blew up. There were 5 front pages with it. Over 300 people called the Met, some praising her and some angry. But then the worst part came. She got letters with threats. Someone said, "Stay at your little city opera or go to heaven with Caruso." She didn't say anything. However, an FBI file from 1978 showed that they even talked to her after she got a bullet casing in the mail from her old neighborhood in Brooklyn. The Met only said something dull about manners. In just 1 week, 18% more tickets were sold for her city opera shows. She had a broken private life behind all that noise. Her son Muffy, who had cerebral palsy, tried to kill himself on June 13, 1974, while she was in Venice singing La Traviata. He was only 15 years old. Beverly had to rush home to Long Island Jewish Hospital, so she had to cancel 3 shows that were already sold out. She told her close friend Edgar Vincent in letters that she would have been home every night if she worked at the Met. She thought the delay cost her more than just a big step in her job. It almost cost her her son. After that, she only wanted jobs in New York and even considered quitting, but her son lived. After many years, he would be proud to see her finally sing at the Met in 1975. In October of the same year, New York Magazine said that Bing had written commercial next to Sills' name on a casting sheet in 1970. People thought that note put her on a blacklist, but he told the truth in an interview with the New York Times in 1991. He said the worst thing that ever happened to him was not hiring Sills. Every newspaper in the world had that one line. It proved what fans already thought. The choice wasn't about art, it was about who had power. A reviewer of opera made a joke that it took Bing 21 years to say something that all taxi drivers already knew. Beverly was now seen as a star who was being held back by the rich and famous. She would use this story to fight for more people to be able to access the arts. Sills didn't make it easy for the Met to ask her to sing Rossini's The Siege of Corinth in 1975. It was her wish that her name would be above Joan Sutherland's on the signs. It was very rare for someone who had never played there to get that kind of demand. She left when they said no. It was crazy in the press. Diva Showdown on Broadway was the title of one article. The Met gave in 8 weeks before the show. On top of the title, Beverly's name would be the only one there. All the signs would have her picture on them. She would get $7,500 per show, which was a record at the time. On April 7, 1975, she took the stage at the Met. It had been 18 minutes since Maria Callas, when the crowd stood and cheered for her. It showed that Sills had become what they said she wasn't, prestigious, since the opera house that used to ignore her was now praising her. The praise didn't last long, though. The very next day, on October 12, 1975, the New York Times ran an article called Beverly Sills, Media Heroine or Real Superstar? That asked if she really belonged. The piece said that her voice had gotten worse and that her high notes were shaking. It also said that all the TV shows and magazine covers were just clever advertising. It said that the Met Gala that week might bring out a weak voice that was hidden by fashion and glitz. It came out right before her biggest night. The phones at the paper lit up. Fans told them they were mad. Someone even called the reviewer a biased Judas. The same article also said she was making up her past. That being said, the story about a poor girl in Brooklyn who sold soap jingles to pay for school wasn't true. It said that her dad owned several houses and wasn't poor at all. The boss of hers said they would sue the newspaper. Officials at the City Opera were angry. A lot of people wrote letters calling the piece an attack on the American dream. Some were written with green ink and glitter. Some people thought the reviewer was just jealous of a woman's success, but not all of them agreed. Some people agreed with the piece that the fame had gotten out of hand. There was a clear split at that time. People loved her for making opera accessible to everyone, and people thought she had sold out the art. She kept her pride, though. When people said her high notes were shaky during her Met run, she told the Met in private to give all of her $2,500 a night pay to charity. People found out she had given all $20,000 to children with birth defects when March of Dimes named her as an anonymous donor at its 1976 gala. She didn't want any attention. Both of her children were born with disabilities, so she had always been in favor of these causes. That one thing made even her harshest enemies like her more. She was no longer called the singer who sang for sick kids. Instead, people talked about her talent. It was March 1979, and Rudolph Bing was on the radio in London, just before he had a stroke. He finally spoke it out loud. The worst thing he did was turn down Beverly Sills. He said that it hurt the Met's reputation and made him feel bad about himself. He said that people like losers. And she was given that job by him. The interview was only shown once, but the lines were used all over the place. It proved the fight wasn't just about music. It had always been about them. The last show Sills did was her last at City Opera on October 27, 1980. It was called Bubbles and Friends. Even though it looked happy on stage, she was hiding something very important. She had surgery 3 months before to get rid of what were thought to be ovarian cysts near where she had cancer in 1974. She was only given the all-clear to sing 11 days before the show. Backstage, she kept a painkiller with her, but she still hit every high note. Even her conductor didn't know the whole story until she put it in a Christmas card. After only a few weeks, on January 1, 1981, she was named General Director of City Opera. And got a huge surprise. The business was in more than just danger. It owed $5 million. She got rid of fancy events, added English supertitles to make operas easier for more people to understand, and even added Stephen Sondheim's show Sweeney Todd. Some opera fans thought she was making it more like Broadway, but it worked. City Opera had a $3 million profit and a 42% fee by 1983. I also saw that 2% more people were going to shows. She was turned down for an opera company before because of her style, which was meant to please a lot of people. When she joined the Met's board in 1991, the piece was finally over. That moment put an end to 30 years of drama, but there was a catch. She promised to never say anything bad about anybody who was cast at the Met and to never act again, not even for a gala. She agreed and made a joke about how her high C should be in a museum. This deal wasn't known about until 2012, when her papers were made public. It proved there was peace, but only by making sure the fight would never happen again. Then the cruelest irony happened. On June 28, 2007, Beverly, who was 78 years old, was told by doctors that her lung cancer had spread. She had never smoked in her whole life. She died 4 days after that. She had planned to host the July 4 PBS show, but she never got there. In the end, doctors said the cancer was caused by years of breathing in secondhand smoke in TV sets and opera houses. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, air systems did not remove marijuana smoke. They just sent it around again. In 1971, she asked TV directors to stop smoking cigars on set, according to her friends. They said no. The arts world was shocked by her death. Within 6 months, smoking was not allowed inside Lincoln Center. In her honor, the Met put in a $1.8 million filter system. After she died, she became a figure for people who didn't smoke but still got hurt by it. When her family sent over 1,000 marked-up voice scores to the New York Public Library in 2009, something was hidden in one of the books. There were 74 letters from 1960 to 1985 tucked between the covers. They told the real story of her family. When she was born, Meredith was deaf, and she later got multiple sclerosis. She had a boy named Peter Jr. who had autism. She told Bing in a letter in 1963 that she was thinking about leaving because she couldn't handle her son's needs and opera runs at the same time. A nasty fight with Joan Sutherland over a TV appearance was shown in another letter from 1978. In what she wrote, Sutherland said that The Muppet Show was like Covent Garden to him. In those letters, she also showed that she was working quietly with CBS to make a telethon about autism. For 7 years, before they were even a thing, her clean look always hid the chaos she lived with. But those letters told the truth. She was smart and knew how to balance pain, stress, and success. But she became most famous for raising money. She led the Mothers' March for the March of Dimes from 1972 to 1994. And raised the same amount of money as $146 million. She was dressed as Cleopatra for an NBC show on January 30, 1983, and it raised $8.4 million in one night. She called Ford's CEO one time from practice and told him that he could make $1 million by noon if she could hit a high note at 9 a.m. She was able to get Congress to match private gifts dollar for dollar by 1990. Her work helped pay for new tests to see if babies are born deaf. In 1992, she opened the Sills Family Resource Center for Autism. To get money, she even sold her expensive dresses at auction. It only took 36 minutes for her last concert at Carnegie Hall to sell out.